Chapter 12 of A Modern Mephistopheles. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Allison. A Modern Mephistopheles by Louisa May Alcott. 12. Olivia came before the swallows, for the 3 words, "I miss you," would have brought her from the ends of the earth, had she exiled herself so far. She had waited for him to want and call her, as he often did when others wearied or failed him. Seldom had so long a time passed without some word from him, and endless doubts, fears, conjectures had harassed her as month after month went by, and no summons came. Now she hastened, ready for anything he might ask of her, since her reward would be a glimpse of the only heaven she knew. Amuse Felix. He is falling in love with his wife, and it spoils both of them for my use. He says he has forgotten you. Come often and teach him to remember, as penalty for his bad taste and manners, was the single order Helwise gave, but Olivia needed no other, and for the sake of coming often, would have smiled upon a far less agreeable man than Canerus. Gladys tried to welcome the new guest cordially, as an unsuspicious dove might have welcomed a falcon to its peaceful cote, but her heart sunk when she found her happy quiet sorely disturbed, her husband's place deserted, and the old glamour slowly returning to separate them, in spite of all her gentle arts. For Canerus, feeling quite safe in the sincere affection which now bound him to his wife, was foolhardy in his desire to show Olivia how heart-whole he had become. This piqued her irresistibly, because Helwise was looking on, and she would win his approval at any cost. So these 3, from divers motives, joined together to teach poor Gladys how much a woman can suffer with silent fortitude and make no sign. The weeks that followed seemed unusually gay and sunny ones, for April came in blandly, and Olivia made a pleasant stir throughout the house by her frequent visits and the various excursions she proposed. Many of these Gladys escaped, for her pain was not the jealousy that would drive her to out-rival her rival, but the sorrowful shame and pity which made her long to hide herself till Felix should come back and be forgiven. Helwise naturally declined the long drives, the exhilarating rides in the bright spring weather, which were so attractive to the younger man, and sat at home watching Gladys, now more absorbingly interesting than ever. He could not but admire the patience, strength, and dignity of the creature, for she made no complaint, showed no suspicion, asked no advice, but went straight on, like one who followed with faltering feet, but unwavering eye, the single star in all the sky that would lead her right. A craving curiosity to know what she felt and thought possessed him, and he invited confidence by unwonted kindliness, as well as the unfailing courtesy he showed her. But Gladys would not speak either to him or to her husband, who seemed wilfully blind to the slowly changing face, all the sadder for the smile it always wore when his eyes were on it. At first, Helwise tried his gentlest arts, but, finding her as true as brave, was driven, by the morbid curiosity which he had indulged till it became a mania, to use means as subtle as sinful, like a burglar, who, failing to pick a lock, grows desperate and breaks it, careless of consequences. Taking his daily walk through the house, he once came upon Gladys watering the jardiniere, which was her especial care, and always kept full of her favorite plants. She was not singing as she worked, but seriously busy as a child, holding in both hands her little watering pot to shower the thirsty ferns and flowers, who turned up their faces to be washed with the silent delight which was their thanks. "See how the dear things enjoy it. I feel as if they knew and watched for me, and I never like to disappoint them of their bath," she said, looking over her shoulder as he paused beside her. She was used to this now, and was never surprised or startled when below stairs by his noiseless approach. "They are doing finely. Did Moss bring in some cyclamens? They're in full bloom now, and you are fond of them, I think?" "Oh, yes, here they are, both purple and white, so sweet and lovely. See how many buds this one has. I shall enjoy seeing them come out. They unfurl so prettily." And full of interest, Gladys parted the leaves to show several baby buds, whose rosy faces were just peeping from their green hoods. Helwise liked to see her among the flowers, for there was something peculiarly innocent and fresh about her then, as if the woman forgot her griefs and was a girl again. It struck him anew, as she stood there in the sunshine, leaning down to tend the soft leaves and cherish the delicate buds with a caressing hand. "Like sees like. You are a sort of cyclamen yourself. I never observed it before, but the likeness is quite striking," he said, with the slow smile which usually prefaced some speech which bore a double meaning. "Am I?" And Gladys eyed the flowers, pleased yet a little shy of compliment from him. "This is especially like you," continued Helwise, touching one of the freshest. "Out of these strong, sombre leaves rises a wreath-like blossom, with white, softly folded petals, a rosy color on its modest face, and a most sweet perfume for those whose sense is fine enough to perceive it. Most of all, perhaps, it resembles you in this: it hides its heart, and, if one tries to look too closely, there is danger of snapping the slender stem. That is its nature, and it cannot help being shy. I kneel down and look up without touching it. Then one sees that it has nothing to hide," protested Gladys, following out the flower fancy, half in earnest, half in jest, for she felt there was a question and a reproach in his words. "Perhaps not. Let us see in my way." With a light touch, Helwise turned the reluctant cyclamen upward, and in its purple cup there clung a newly fallen drop, like a secret tear. Mute and stricken, Gladys looked at the little symbol of herself, owning with a throb of pain that if in nothing else they were alike in that. Helwise stood silent likewise, inhaling the faint fragrance while he softly ruffled the curled petals as if searching for another tear. Suddenly Gladys spoke out with a directness which always gave him a keen pleasure, asking, as she stretched her hand involuntarily to shield the more helpless flower, "Sir, why do you wish to read my heart?" "To comfort it." "Do I need comfort, then?" "Do you not?" "If I have a sorrow, God only can console me, and He only need know it. To you it should be sacred. Forgive me if I seem ungrateful, but you cannot help me if you would." "Do you doubt my will?" "I try to doubt no one, but I fear many things." And, as if afraid of saying too much, Gladys broke off to hurry away, wearing so strange a look that Helwise was consumed with a desire to know its meaning. He saw no more of her till twilight, for Canaris took her place just then, reading a foreign book, which she could not manage, but, when Felix went out, he sought one of his solitary haunts, hoping she would appear. She did, for the day closed early with the gusty rain, and the sunset hour was gray and cold, leaving no afterglow to tint the western sky and bathe the great room in ruddy light. Pale and noiseless as a spirit, Gladys went to and fro, trying to quiet the unrest that made her nights sleepless, her days one long struggle to be patient, just, and kind. She tried to sing, but the song died in her throat. She tried to sew, but her eyes were dim, and the flower under her needle only reminded her that pansies were for thoughts, and hers, alas, were too sad for thinking. She took up a book, but laid it down again, since Felix was not there to finish it with her. Her own room seemed so empty, she could not return thither when she had looked for him in vain. And, longing for some human voice to speak to her, it was a relief to come upon Helwise sitting in his lonely corner. For she never went now to the library unless duty called her. "A dull evening and dull company," he said, as she paused beside him, glad to have found something to take her out of herself, for a time at least. "Such a long day, and such a dreary night as it will be," she answered, leaning her forehead against the window-pane to watch the drops fall and listen to the melancholy wind. "Shorten the one and cheer the other, as I do. Sleep, dream, and forget." "I cannot," and there was a world of suffering in the words that broke from her against her will. "Try my sleep-compeller as freely as I tried yours. See, these will give you one, if not all, the 3 desired blessings: quiet slumber, delicious dreams, or utter oblivion for a time." As he spoke, Helwise had drawn out a little bonbonniere of tortoise-shell and silver, which he always carried, and shaken into his palm half a dozen white comfits, which he offered to Gladys, with a benign expression born of real sympathy and compassion. She hesitated, and he added, in a tone of mild reproach, which smote her generous heart with compunction, "Since I may not even try to minister to your troubled mind, let me at least give a little rest to your weary body. Trust me, child, these cannot hurt you, and strong as you are, you will break down if you do not sleep." Without a word she took them, and, as they melted on her tongue, first sweet, then bitter, she stood leaning against the rainy window-pane, listening to Helwise, who began to talk as if he too had tasted the Indian drug, which made the face of Coleridge shine as he conversed, like one inspired. It seemed a very simple, friendly act, but this man had learned to know how subtly the mind works, to see how often an apparently impulsive action is born of an almost unconscious thought, an unacknowledged purpose, a deeply hidden motive, which to many seem rather the child than the father of the deed. Helwise did not deceive himself, and owned that baffled desire prompted that unpremeditated offer, and was ready to avail itself of any self-betrayal which might follow its acceptance, for he had given Gladys hashish. It could not harm. It might soothe and comfort her unrest. It surely would make her forget for a while, and in that temporary oblivion perhaps he might discover what he burned to know. The very uncertainty of its effect added to the daring of the deed. And, while he talked, he waited to see how it would affect her, well knowing that in such a temperament as hers all processes are rapid. For an hour he conversed so delightedly of Rome and its wonders that Gladys was amazed to find Felix had come in, unheard for once. All through dinner she brightened steadily, thinking the happy mood was brought by her prodigal's return, quite forgetting Helwise and his bittersweet bonbons. "I shall stay at home and enjoy the society of my pretty wife. What have you done to make yourself so beautiful tonight? Is it the new gown?" asked Canaris, surveying her with laughing but most genuine surprise and satisfaction as they returned to the drawing-room again. "It is not new. I made it long ago, to please you, but you never noticed it before," answered Gladys, glancing at the pale-hued dress, all broad, soft folds from waist to ankle, with its winter trimming of swan's down at the neck and wrist, simple, but most becoming to her flower-like face and girlish figure. "What cruel blindness! But I see it and admire it now, and honestly declare that not Olivia in all her splendor is arrayed so much to my taste as you, my sancta simplicitas." "It is pleasant to hear you say so, but that alone does not make me happy. It must be having you at home all to myself again," she whispered, with shining eyes, cheeks that glowed with a deeper rose each hour, and an indescribable blessed expression in a face which now was both brilliant and dreamy. Helwise heard what she said, and, fearing to lose sight of her, promptly challenged Canaris to chess, a favorite pastime with them both. For an hour they played, well matched and keenly interested, while Gladys sat by, already tasting the restful peace, the delicious dreams promised her. The clock was on the stroke of 8, the game was nearly over, when a quick ring arrested Helwise in the act of making the final move. There was a stir in the hall. Then, bringing with her a waft of fresh damp air, Olivia appeared, brave in purple silk and Roman gold. "I thought you were all asleep or dead, but now I see the cause of this awful silence," she cried. "Don't speak, don't stir. Let me enjoy the fine tableau you make. Righteous game of life, quite perfect and most effective." It certainly was to an observer, for Canaris, flushed and eager, looked the young man to the life. Helwise, calm but intent, with his finger on his lip, pondering that last fateful move, was an excellent Satan. And behind them stood Gladys, wonderfully resembling the wistful angel with that new brightness on her face. "Which wins?" asked Olivia, rustling toward them, conscious of having made an impressive entrance, for both men looked up to welcome her, though Gladys never lifted her eyes from the mimic battle Felix seemed about to lose. "I do, as usual," answered Helwise, turning to finish the game with the careless ease of a victor. "Not this time," and Gladys touched a piece which Canaris in the hurry of the moment was about to overlook. He saw its value at a glance, made the one move that could save him, and in an instant cried, "Checkmate," with a laugh of triumph. "Not fair. The angel interfered," said Olivia, shaking a warning finger at Gladys, who echoed her husband's laugh with one still more exultant, as she put her hand upon his shoulder, saying in a low, intense voice never heard from her lips before, "I have won him. He is mine, and cannot be taken from me any more." "Dearest child, no one wants him except to play with and admire," began Olivia, rather startled by the look and manner of the lately meek, mute Gladys. Here Helwise struck in, anxious to avert Olivia's attention, for her undesirable presence disconcerted him, since her woman's wit might discover what it was easy to conceal from Canaris. "You have come to entertain us like the amiable enchantress that you are?" he asked suggestively, for nothing charmed Olivia more than permission to amuse him when others failed. "I have a thought, a happy thought, if Gladys will help me. You have given me one living picture. I will give you others, and she shall sing the scenes we illustrate." "Take Felix, and give us the God and the Bayadere," said Helwise, glancing at the young pair behind them, he intent upon their conversation, she upon him. "No, I will have only Gladys. You will act and sing for us, I know?" And Olivia turned to her with a most engaging smile. "I never acted in my life, but I will try. I think I should like it, for I feel as if I could do anything tonight." And she came to them with a swift step, an eager air, as if longing to find some outlet for the strange energy which seemed to thrill every nerve and set her heart to beating audibly. "You look so. Do you know all these songs?" asked Olivia, taking up the book which had suggested her happy thought. "There are but 4. I know them all. I will gladly sing them, for I set them to music, if they had none of their own already. I often do that to those Felix writes me." "Come, then. I want the key of the great press, where you keep your spoils, Jasper." "Mrs. Bland will give it you. Order what you will, if you are going to treat us to an Arabian Nights entertainment. Better than that, we are going to teach a small poet by illustrating the work of a great one." And with a mischievous laugh, Olivia vanished, beckoning Gladys to follow. The 2 men beguiled the time as best they might, Cantor playing softly to himself in the music room, Hellwise listening intently to the sounds that came from behind the curtains, now dropped over a double doorway leading to the lower end of the hall. Olivia's imperious voice was heard, directing men and maids. More than once an excited laugh from Gladys jarred upon his ear, and, as minute after minute passed, his impatience to see her again increased. End of chapter 12.
Section 13 of A Modern Mephistopheles. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Ashley Greeley. A Modern Mephistopheles by Louisa May Alcott. Section 13. After what would have seemed a wonderfully short time to a more careless waiter, 3 blows were struck, in the French fashion, and Canaris barely had time to reach his place when the deep blue curtains slid noiselessly apart, showing the visible portion of the hall, arranged to look like a medieval room. An easy task, when a suit of rusty armor already stood there, and Hellwise had brought spoils from all quarters of the globe, in the shape of old furniture, tapestry, weapons, and trophies of many a wild hunt. "What is it?" whispered Canaris eagerly. "An idol of the king." "I see, the first. How well they look it." They did. Olivia as an ancient dame in dim brocade, and near her like a blossom, vermeil white, that lightly breaks a faded flower sheath, stood the fair Enid, all in faded silk. Gladys, clad in a quaint costume of tarnished gray and silver damask, singing in the sweet voice of a bird, "Turn, fortune, turn thy wheel, and lower the proud. Turn thy wild wheel through sunshine, storm, and cloud. Thy wheel and thee we neither love nor hate. Turn, fortune, turn thy wheel with smile and frown. With that wild wheel we go not up nor down. Our hoard is little, but our hearts are great. Smile, and we smile, the lords of many lands. Frown, and we smile, the lords of our own hands. For man is man, and master of his fate. Turn, turn thy wheel above the staring crowd. Thy wheel and thou art shadows in the cloud. Thy wheel and thee we neither love nor hate." There was something inexpressibly touching in the way Gladys gave the words, which had such significance addressed to those who listened so intently that they nearly forgot to pay the tribute which all actors, the greatest, the least, desire when the curtains dropped and the song was done. A capital idea of Olivia's, and beautifully carried out. This promises to be pleasant. And Hellwise sat erect upon the divan, where Canaris came to lounge beside him. "Which comes next? I don't remember. If it is Vivian, they will have to skip it, unless they call you in for Merlin," he said, talking gaily, because a little conscience-stricken by the look Gladys wore, as she sung, with her eyes upon him. "Our hoard is little, but our hearts are great. They will not want a Merlin, for Gladys could not act Vivian if she would," answered Hellwise, tapping restlessly as he waited. "She said she could do anything tonight, and upon my life she looked as if she might even beguile you, mighty master, of your strongest spell." "She will never try." But both were mistaken, for when they looked again, the dim light showed a dark and hooded shape, with glittering eyes and the semblance of a flowing, hoary beard, leaning half-hidden in a bower of tall shrubs from the conservatory. It was Olivia as Merlin, and being of noble proportions, she looked the part excellently. Upon the wizard's knee sat Vivian. A twist of gold was round her hair, a robe of samite without price, that more expressed than hid her, clung about her lissom limbs, in color like the satin-shining palm on sallows in the windy gleams of March. In any other mood, Gladys would never have consented to be loosely clad in a great mantle of some Indian fabric, which shimmered like woven light, with its alternate stripes of gold-covered silk and softest wool. Shoulders and arms showed rosy white under the veil of hair which swept to her knee, as she clung there, singing sweet and low, with eyes on Merlin's face, lips near his own, and head upon his breast. In love, if love be love, if love be ours, faith and unfaith can ne'er be equal powers. Unfaith in aught is want of faith in all. It is the little rift within the lute that by and by will make the music mute, and ever widening, slowly silence all. The little rift within the lover's lute, or little pitted speck in garnered fruit, that rotting inward slowly moulders all. It is not worth the keeping, let it go. But shall it? Answer, darling, answer no, and trust me not at all, or all in all. There Gladys seemed to forget her part, and turning, stretched her arms toward her husband, as if in music she had found a tongue to plead her cause. The involuntary gesture recalled to her the other verse which Vivian added to her song, and something impelled her to sing it, standing erect, with face, figure, voice all trembling with a strong emotion that suddenly controlled her. My name once mine, now thine, is closelier mine. For fame, could fame be mine, that fame were thine. And shame, could shame be thine, that shame were mine. So trust me not at all, or all in all. Down fell the curtain there, and the two men looked at one another in silence for an instant, dazzled, troubled, and surprised. For in this brilliant, impassioned creature they did not recognize the Gladys they believed they knew so well. "What possessed her to sing that? She is so unlike herself, I do not know her," said Canaris, excited by the discoveries he was making. "She is inspired tonight, so be prepared for anything. These women will work wonders, for they are acting to the men they love," answered Helwise, warily, yet excited also, because for him a double drama was passing on that little stage, and he found it marvelously fascinating. "I never knew how beautiful she was," mused Canaris, half aloud, his eyes upon the blue draperies which hid her from his sight. "You never saw her in such gear before. Splendor suits her present mood, as well as simplicity becomes her usual self-restraint. You have made her jealous, and your angel will prove herself a woman, after all." "Is that the cause of the sudden change in her? Then I don't regret playing truant, for the woman suits me better than the angel," cried Canaris, conscious that the pale affection he had borne his wife so long was already glowing with new warmth and color, in spite of his seeming neglect. "Wait till you see Olivia as Guinevere. I know she cannot resist that part, and I suspect she is willing to efface herself so far that she may take us by storm, by and by." Helwise prophesied truly, and when next the curtains parted, the stately queen sat in the nunnery of Almesbury, with a little novice at her feet. Olivia was right splendid now, for her sumptuous beauty well became the costly stuffs in which she had draped herself with the graceful art of a woman whose physical loveliness was her best possession. A trifle too gorgeous, perhaps, for the repentant Guinevere, but a most grand and gracious spectacle, nevertheless, as she leaned in the tall carved chair, with jeweled arms lying languidly across her lap, and the absent eyes still full of love and longing for lost Lancelot. Gladys, in white wimple and close-folded gown of gray, sat on a stool beside the one low light, humming softly, her rosary fallen at her feet. The queen looked up and said, "O maiden, if indeed you list to sing, sing, and unbind my heart, that I may weep." Whereat full willingly sang the little maid, "Late, late, so late, and dark the night and chill. Late, late, so late, but we can enter still. Too late, ye cannot enter now. No light had we, for that we do repent. And learning this, the bridegroom will relent. Too late, ye cannot enter now." "No light, so late, and dark and chill the night. Oh, let us in, that we may find the light. Too late, ye cannot enter now. Have we not heard the bridegroom is so sweet? Oh, let us in, though late, to kiss his feet. No, too late, ye cannot enter now." Slowly the proud head had drooped, the stately figure sunk, till, as the last lament died away, nothing remained of splendid Guinevere but a hidden face, a cloud of black hair from which the crown had fallen, a heap of rich robes quivering with the stormy sobs of a guilty woman's smitten heart. The curtains closed on this tableau, which was made the more effective by the strong contrast between the despairing queen and the little novice telling her beads in meek dismay. Good heavens! That sounded like the wail of a lost soul. My blood runs cold, and I feel as if I ought to say my prayers, muttered Canaris, with a shiver. For, with his susceptible temperament, music always exerted over him an almost painful power. If you knew any, sneered Hellwise, whose eyes now glittered with something stronger than excitement. I do. Gladys taught me, and I am not ashamed to own it. Much good may it do you. Then, in a quieter tone, he asked, Is there any song in Elaine? I forget, and that is the only one we have not had. There is the Song of Love and Death. Gladys was learning it lately, and, if I remember rightly, it was heart-rending. I hope she will not sing it, for this sort of thing is rather too much for me. And Canaris got up to wander aimlessly about, humming the gayest airs he knew, as if to drown the sorrowful "Too late, too late," still wailing in his ear. By this time Gladys was no longer quite herself. An inward excitement possessed her. A wild desire to sing her very heart out came over her, and a strange chill, which she thought a vague presentiment of coming ill, crept through her blood. Everything seemed vast and awful. Every sense grew painfully acute, and she walked as in a dream, so vivid yet so mysterious that she did not try to explain it even to herself. Her identity was doubled. One Gladys moved and spoke as she was told, a pale, dim figure of no interest to anyone. The other was alive in every fiber, thrilled with intense desire for something, and bent on finding it, though deserts, oceans, and boundless realms of air were passed to gain it. Olivia wondered at her unsuspected power, and felt a little envious of her enchanting gift. But she was too absorbed in setting the stage, dressing her prima donna, and planning how to end the spectacle with her favorite character of Cleopatra, to do more than observe that Gladys's eyes were luminous and large, her face growing more and more colorless, her manner less and less excited, yet unnaturally calm. This is the last, and you have the stage alone. Do your best for Felix, then you shall rest and be thanked, she whispered, somewhat anxiously as she placed Elaine in her tower, leaning against the dark screen which was unfolded to suggest the casement she flung back when Lancelot paused below, and glanced not up, nor waved his hand, nor bade farewell, but sadly rode away. The lily maid of Astolat could not have looked more wan and weird than Gladys, as she stood in her trailing robes of dead white, with loosely gathered locks, hands clasped over that gay bit of tapestry which simulated the cover of the shield, eyes that seemed to see something invisible to those about her, and began her song in a veiled voice, at once so sad and solemn that Hellwise held his breath, and Canaris felt as if she called him from beyond the grave. Sweet is true love, though given in vain, and sweet is death, who puts an end to pain. I know not which is sweeter, no, not I. Love, art thou sweet? Then bitter death must be. Love, thou art bitter, sweet is death to me. O love, if death be sweeter, let me die. Sweet love, that seems not made to fade away, sweet death, that seems to make us loveless clay, I know not which is sweeter, no, not I. I fain would follow love, if that could be. I needs must follow death, who calls for me. Call, and I follow, let me die. Carried beyond self-control by the unsuspected presence of the drug, which was doing its work with perilous rapidity, Gladys, remembering only that the last line should be sung with force, and that she sung for Felix, obeyed the wild impulse to let her voice rise and ring out with a shrill, despairing power and passion, which startled every listener, and echoed through the room like Elaine's unearthly cry of hapless love and death. Olivia dropped her asp, terrified. The maid stared, uncertain whether it was acting or insanity, and Hellwise sprung up aghast, fearing that he had dared too much. But Canaris, seeing only the wild, woeful eyes fixed on his, the hands wrung as if in pain, forgot everything but Gladys, and rushed between the curtains, exclaiming in real terror, "Don't look so! Don't sing so! My God, she's dying!" No, not dying, only slipping fast into the unconscious stage of the hashish dream, whose coming none can foretell but those accustomed to its use. Pale and quiet she lay in her husband's arms, with half-open eyes and fluttering breath, smiling up at him so strangely that he was bewildered as well as panic-stricken. Olivia forgot her Cleopatra to order air and water. The maids flew for salts and wine. Hellwise, with difficulty, hid his momentary dismay, while Canaris, almost beside himself, could only hang over the couch where lay the lily maid, looking as if already dead, and drifting down to Camelot. "Gladys, do you know me?" he cried, as a little color came to her lips after the fiery draught Olivia energetically administered. The eyes opened wider, the smile grew brighter, and she lifted her hand to bring him nearer, for he seemed immeasurably distant. "Felix, let me be still, quite still. I want to sleep. Good night, good night." She thought she kissed him. Then his face receded, vanished, and as she floated buoyantly away upon the first of the many oceans to be crossed in her mysterious quest, a far-off voice seemed to say, solemnly, as if in a last farewell, "Hush, let her sleep in peace." It was Hellwise, and, having felt her pulse, he cheerfully assured them all that she was only overexcited, must rest an hour or two, and soon would be quite herself again. So the brief panic ended quietly, and, having lowered the lights, spread Guinevere's velvet mantle over her, and reassured themselves that she was sleeping quietly. The women went to restore order to anteroom and hall. Canara sat down to watch beside Gladys, and Hellwise betook himself to the library. "Is she still sleeping?" he asked with unconcealable anxiety when Olivia joined him there. "Like a baby. What a high-strung little thing it is. If she had strength to bear the training, she would make a cantatrice to be proud of, Jasper." "Ah, but she never would. Fancy that modest creature on a stage for all the world to gape at. She was happiest in the nun's gown tonight, though simply ravishing as Vivian. The pretty bare feet were most effective. But how did you persuade her to it?" "I had no sandals as a compromise. I therefore insisted that the part must be so dressed or undressed, and she submitted. People usually do when I command." "She was on her mettle, I could see that. And well she might be, with you for a rival. I give you my word, Olivia, if I did not know you were nearly 40, I should swear it was a lie. For age cannot wither nor custom stale, my handsome Cleopatra. We ought to have had that, by the by. It used to be your best bit. I could not be your Antony, but Felix might. He adores costuming, and would do it capitally." "Not old enough. Ah, what happy times those were!" And Olivia sighed sincerely, yet dramatically, for she knew she was looking wonderfully well, thrown down upon a couch, with her purple skirt sweeping about her, and 2 fine arms banded with gold clasped over her dark head. Hellwise had flattered with a purpose. Canaris was in the way. Gladys might betray herself, and all was not safe yet, though in one respect the experiment had succeeded admirably, for he still tingled with the excitement of the evening. Now he wanted help, not sentiment, and ignoring the sigh, said carelessly, "If I'll obey when you insist, just make Felix go home with you. The drive will do him good, for he is as nervous as a woman, and I shall have him fidgeting about all night unless he forgets his fright." "But Gladys?" "She will be the better for a quiet nap, and ready, by the time he returns, to laugh at her heroics. He will only disturb her if he sits there like a mourner at a deathbed." "That sounds sensible and friendly, and you do it very well, Jasper, but I am impressed that something is amiss. What is it?" "Better tell me. I shall surely find it out, and will not work in the dark. I see mischief in your eyes, and you cannot deceive me." Olivia spoke half in jest, but she had so often seen his face without a mask that it was difficult to wear one in her presence. He frowned, hesitated, then fearing she would refuse the favor if he withheld the secret, he leaned towards her and answered in a whisper, I gave Gladys hashish, and do not care to have Felix know it." "Jasper, how dared you?" "She was restless, suffering for sleep. I know what that is, and out of pity gave her the merest taste. Upon my honor, no more than a child might safely take. She did not know what it was, and I thought she would only feel its soothing charm. She would, if it had not been for this masquerading. I did not count on that, and it was too much for her. Will she not suffer from the after-effects?" "Not a whit, if she is let alone. An hour hence she will be deliciously drowsy, and tomorrow none the worse. I had no idea it would affect her so powerfully, but I do not regret it, for it showed what the woman is capable of. At your old tricks. You will never learn to let your fellow creatures alone till something terrible stops you. You were always prying into things, even as a boy, when I caught butterflies for you to look at. I never killed them, only brushed off a trifle of the gloss by my touch, and let them go again, none the worse, except for the loss of a few invisible feathers. Ah, but that delicate plumage is the glory of the insect. Robbed of that, its beauty is marred. No one but their Maker can search hearts without harming them. I wonder how it will fare with yours when he looks for its perfection." Olivia spoke with a sudden seriousness, a yearning look which jarred on nerves already somewhat unstrung, and Hellwise answered in a mocking tone that silenced her effectually. "I am desperately curious to know. If I can come and tell you, I will. Such pious interest deserves the attention." "Heaven forbid!" ejaculated Olivia with a shiver. "Then I will not. I have been such a poor ghost here, I suspect I shall be glad to rest eternally when I fall asleep, if I can." Weary was his voice, weary his attitude, as, leaning an elbow on either knee, he propped his chin upon his hands, and sat brooding for a moment with his eyes upon the ground, asking himself for the 1000th time the great question which only hope and faith can answer truly. Olivia rose. "You are tired, but so am I. Good night, Jasper, and pleasant dreams. But remember, no more tampering with Gladys, or I must tell her husband." "I have had my lesson. Take Felix with you, and I will send Mrs. Bland to sit with her till he comes back. Good night, my cousin. Thanks for a glimpse of the old times." Such words, uttered with a pressure of the hand, conquered Olivia's last scruple, and she went away to prefer her request in a form which made it impossible for Canaris to refuse. Gladys still slept quietly. The distance was not long, the fresh air grateful, Olivia her kindest self, and he obeyed, believing that the motherly old woman would take his place as soon as certain housewifely duties permitted. Then Hellwise did an evil thing, a thing few men could or would have done. He deliberately violated the sanctity of a human soul, robbing it alike of its most secret and most precious thoughts. Hashish had lulled the senses which guarded the treasure. Now the magnetism of a potent will forced the reluctant lips to give up the key. Like a thief, he stole to Gladys's side, took in his the dimpled hands whose very childishness should have pleaded for her, and fixed his eyes upon the face before him, untouched by its helpless innocence, its unnatural expression. The half-open eyes were heavy as dew-drunken violets. The sweet red mouth was set. The agitated bosom still rose and fell like a troubled sea subsiding after a storm. So sitting, stern and silent as the fate he believed in, Hellwise concentrated every power upon the accomplishment of the purpose to which he bent his will. He called it psychological curiosity, for not even to himself did he dare confess the true meaning of the impulse which drove him to this act, and dearly did he pay for it. Soon the passive palms thrilled in his own, the breath came faint and slow, color died, and life seemed to recede from the countenance, leaving a pale effigy of the woman, lately so full of vitality. "It works, it works," muttered Hellwise, lifting his head at length to wipe the dampness from his brow, and send a piercing glance about the shadowy room. Then, kneeling down beside the couch, he put his lips to her ear, whispering in a tone of still command, "Gladys, do you hear me?" Like the echo of a voice, so low, expressionless, and distant it was, the answer came, I hear.
Will you answer me?
I must.
You have a sorrow. Tell it.
All is so false. I am unhappy without confidence,
sighed the voice. Can you trust no one?
No one here but Felix.
Yet he deceives. He does not love you.
He will.
Is this the hope which sustains you?
Yes.
And you forgive? You love him still?
Always.
If the hope fails?
It will not.
I shall have help. What help? No answer now, but the shadow of a smile seemed to float across the silent lips, as if reflected from a joy too deep and tender for speech to tell. Speak! What is this happiness? The hope of freedom?
It will come.
How?
When you die.
He caught his breath, and for an instant seemed daunted by the truth he had evoked, for it was terrible, so told, so heard. You hate me, then? He whispered, almost fiercely, in the ear that never shrank from his hot lips.
I doubt and dread you.
Why, Gladys, why? To you I am not cruel.
Too kind, alas, too kind.
And yet you fear me.
God help us. Yes.
What is your fear?
No, I will not tell it.
Some inward throe of shame or anguish turned the pale face paler, knotted the brow, and locked the lips, as if both soul and body revolted from the thought thus ruthlessly dragged to light. Instinct, the first, last, strongest impulse of human nature, struggled blindly to save the woman from betraying the dread which haunted her heart like a spectre, and burned her lips in the utterance of its name. But Hellwise was pitiless, his will indomitable, his eye held, his hand controlled, his voice commanded. And the answer came, so reluctantly, so inaudibly, that he seemed to divine, not hear it. What fear?
Your love.
You see? You know it, then?
I do not see. I vaguely feel. I pray God I may never know.
With the involuntary recoil of a guilty joy, a shame as great, Hellwise dropped the nerveless hand, turned from the mutely accusing face, let the troubled spirit rest, and asked no more. But his punishment began as he stood there, finding the stolen truth a heavier burden than baffled doubt or desire had been, since forbidden knowledge was bitter to the taste, forbidden love possessed no sweetness, and the hidden hope, putting off its well-worn disguise, confronted him in all its ugliness. An awesome silence filled the room until he lifted up his eyes and looked at Gladys with a look which would have wrung her heart could she have seen it. She did not see, for she lay there so still, so white, so dead. He seemed to have scared away the soul he had vexed with his impious questioning. In remorseful haste, Hellwise busied himself about her till she woke from that sleep within a sleep, moaned wearily, closed the unseeing eyes, and drifted away into more natural slumber, dream-haunted, but deep and quiet. Then he stole away as he had come, and, sending the old woman to watch Gladys, shut himself into his own room, to keep a vigil which lasted until dawn, for all the poppies of the East could not have brought oblivion that night. End of section 13.
Section 14 of A Modern Mephistopheles. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Ashley Greeley. A Modern Mephistopheles by Louisa May Alcott. Section 14. It seemed as if some angel had Gladys in especial charge, bringing light out of darkness, joy out of sorrow, good out of evil, for no harm came to her,
only a great peace, which transfigured her face till it was as spiritually beautiful as that of some young Madonna. Waking late the next day, she remembered little of the past night's events, and cared to remember little, having clearer and calmer thoughts to dwell upon, happier dreams to enjoy. She suspected Hellwise of imprudent kindness, but uttered no reproach, quite unconscious of how much she had to forgive, thereby innocently adding to both the relief and the remorse he felt. The doubt and dread which had risen to the surface at his command seemed to sink again into the depths, and hope and love to still the troubled waters where her lifeboat rode at anchor for a time. Canaris, as if tired of playing truant, was ready now to be forgiven, more conscious than ever before that his young wife was a possession to be proud of, since, when she chose, she could eclipse even Olivia. The jealousy which could so inspire her flattered his man's vanity, and made her love more precious, for not yet had he learned all its depth, nor how to be worthy of it. The reverence he had always felt increased fourfold, but the affection began to burn with a stronger flame, and Canaris, for the first time, tasted the pure happiness of loving another better than himself. Glad to feel, yet ashamed to own, a sentiment whose sincerity made it very sweet, he kept it to himself, and showed no sign, except a new and most becoming humility of manner when with Gladys, as of silently asking pardon for many shortcomings. With Hellwise he was cold and distant, evidently dreading to have him discover the change he had foretold, and feeling as if his knowledge of it would profane the first really sacred emotion the young man had known since his mother died. Anxious for some screen behind which to hide the novel, yet most pleasurable sensations which beset him, he found Olivia a useful friend, and still kept up some semblance of the admiration, out of which all dangerous ardor was fast fading. She saw this at once, and did not regret it, for she had a generous nature, which an all-absorbing and unhappy passion had not entirely spoiled. Obedience to Hellwise was her delight, but, knowing him better than any other human being could, she was troubled by his increasing interest in Gladys, more especially since discovering that the girl possessed the originality, fire, and energy which were more attractive to him than her youth, gentleness, or grace. Jealousy was stronger than the desire to obey, and, calling it compassion, Olivia resolved to be magnanimous and spare Gladys further pain, letting Canaris return to his allegiance, as he seemed inclined to do, unhindered by any act of hers. "The poor child is so young, so utterly unable to cope with me, it is doubly cruel to torment her just to gratify a whim of Jasper's. Better make my peace handsomely, and be her friend, than rob her of the only treasure she possesses, since I do not covet it," she thought, driving through the May-day sunshine, to carry Jasper the earliest sprays of white and rosy hawthorn from the villa garden, whither she had been able to set all in order for the summer. Hellwise was not yet visible, and, full of her new design, Olivia hastened up to find Gladys, meaning by some friendly word, some unmistakable but most delicate hint, to reassure her regarding the errant young husband whom she had not yet learned to hold. There was no answer to her hasty tap, and Olivia went in to seek yet further. Halfway across the larger apartment, she paused abruptly, and stood looking straight before her, with a face which passed rapidly from its first expression of good-will to one of surprise, then softened, till tears stood in the brilliant eyes, and some sudden memory or thought made that usually proud countenance both sad and tender. Gladys sat alone in her little room, her work lying on her knee, her arms folded, her head bent, singing to herself as she rocked to and fro, lost in some reverie that made her lips smile faintly, and her voice very sweet. She often sat so now, but Olivia had never seen her thus, and, seeing, divined at once the hope which lifted her above all sorrow, the help sent by heaven, when most she needed it. For the song Gladys sang was a lullaby. The look she wore was that which comes to a woman's face when she rocks her firstborn on her knee, and above her head was a new picture, an angel, with the lily of Annunciation in its hand. The one precious memory of Olivia's stormy life was the little daughter, for who a sweet, short year was all in all to her, and whose small grave was yearly covered with the first spring flowers. Fresh from this secret pilgrimage, the woman's nature was at its noblest now, And seeing that other woman, so young, so lonely, yet so blessed, her heart yearned over her. All her worser self slipped from her like a robe. And, hurrying in, she said impulsively, "Oh, child, I wish you had a mother." Gladys looked up, unstartled from the calm in which she dwelt. Olivia's face explained her words, and she answered them with the only reproach much pain had wrung from her. "You might have been one to me." "It is not too late. What shall I do to prove my sincerity?" cried Olivia, stricken with remorse. "Help me to give my little child an honest father." "I will. Show me how." Then these two women spent a memorable hour together, for the new tie of motherhood bridged across all differences of age and character, made confession easy, confidence sweet, friendship possible. Yet, after all, Gladys was the comforter, Olivia the one who poured out her heart and found relief in telling the sorrows that had been, the temptations that still beset her, the good that yet remained to answer when the right chord was touched. She longed to give as much as she received, but when she had owned, with a new sense of shame, that she was merely playing with Canaris for her own amusement, being true to Helwise even in her falsehood, there seemed no more for her to do, since Gladys asked but one other question, and that she could not answer. "If he does not love you, and perhaps it is as you say, only a poet's admiration for beauty, what is the trouble that keeps us apart? At first I was too blindly happy to perceive it. Now tears have cleared my eyes, and I see that he hides something from me, something which he longs, yet dares not tell. I know. I saw it long ago, but Jasper alone can tell that secret. He holds Felix by it, and I fear the knowledge would be worse than the suspicion. Let it be. Time sets all things right, and it is ill thwarting my poor cousin. I have a charming plan for you and Felix, and when you have him to yourself, you may be able to win his confidence, as I am sure you have already won his heart." Then Olivia told her plan, which was both generous and politic, since it made Gladys truly happy, proved her own sincerity, secured her own peace and that of the men whose lives seemed to become more and more inextricably tangled together. "Now I shall go to Jasper and conquer all his opposition, for I know I am right. Dear little creature, what is it about you that makes one feel both humble and strong when one is near you?" asked Olivia, looking down at Gladys with a hand on either shoulder, and genuine wonder in the eyes still soft with unwonted tears. "God made me truthful, and I try to keep so, that is all," she answered simply. "That is enough. Kiss me, Gladys, and make me better. I'm not good enough to be the mother that I might have been to you, but I am a friend, believe that, and trust me if you can." "I do." And Gladys sealed her confidence with both lips and hand. "Jasper, I have invited those children to spend the summer at the villa, since you have decided for the sea. Gladys is mortally tired of this hothouse life, so is Felix. Give them a long holiday, or they will run away together. Mrs. Bland and I will take care of you till they come back." Olivia walked in upon Helwise with this abrupt announcement, well knowing that persuasion would be useless, and vigorous measures surest to win the day. Artful as well as courageous in her assault, she answered in that one speech several objections against her plan, and suggested several strong reasons for it, sure that he would yield the first, and own the latter. He did, with unexpected readiness, for a motive which she could not fathom prompted his seemingly careless acquiescence. He had no thought of relinquishing his hold on Canaris, since through him alone he held Gladys, but he often longed to escape from both for a time, that he might study and adjust the new power which had come into his life, unbidden, undesired. Surprise and disappointment were almost instantaneously followed by a sense of relief when Olivia spoke, for he saw at once that this project was a wiser one than she knew. Before her rapid sentences were ended, the thought had come and gone, the decision was made, and he could answer, in a tone of indifference which both pleased and perplexed her, "Amiable woman, with what helpful aspirations are you blessed? Seeing your failure with Felix, I have been wondering how I should get rid of him till he recovers from this comically tardy passion for his wife. They can have another and a longer honeymoon up at the villa if they like. The other was far from romantic, I suspect. Well, why that sphinx-like expression, if you please? he added, as Olivia stood regarding him from behind the fading hawthorn, which she forgot to offer. "I was wondering if I should ever understand you, Jasper." "Doubtful, since I shall never understand myself." "You ought, if any man, for you spend your life in studying yourself." "And the more I study, the less I know. It is very like a child with a toy ark. I never know what animal may appear first. I put in my hand for a dove, and I get a serpent. I open the door for a sagacious elephant, and out rushes a tiger. I think I have found a favorite dog, and it is a wolf, looking ready to devour me. An unsatisfactory toy. Better put it away and choose another." Helwise spoke in the half-jesting, half-serious way habitual to him, but though his mouth smiled, his eyes were gloomy, and Olivia hastened to turn his thoughts from a subject in which he took a morbid interest. "Fanciful, but true. Now follow your own excellent advice, and find wholesome amusement in helping me pack off the young people, and then ourselves. It is not too early for them to go at once. Canaris can come in and out as you want him for a month longer. Then I will have all things ready for you in the old cottage by the sea. You used to be happy there. Can you not be so again?" "If you can give me back my 20 years. May Day is over for both of us. Why try to make the dead hawthorn bloom again? Carry out your plan, and let the children be happy." They were very happy, for the prospect of entire freedom was so delicious that Gladys had some difficulty in concealing her delight, while Canaris openly rejoiced when told of Olivia's offer. All dinner time he was talking of it, and afterward, under pretense of showing her a new plant, he took his wife into the conservatory, that he might continue planning how they should spend this unexpected holiday. Helwise saw them wandering arm in arm, Canaris talking rapidly, and Gladys listening, with happy laughter, to his whimsical suggestions and projects. Their content displeased the looker-on, but there was something so attractive in the flower-framed picture of beauty, youth, and joy, that he could not turn his eyes away, although the sight aroused strangely conflicting thoughts within him. He wished them gone, yet dreaded to lose the charm of his confined life, feeling that absence would inevitably become estrangement. Canaris would never be entirely his again, for he was slowly climbing upward into a region where false ambition could not blind, mere pleasure satisfy, nor license take the place of liberty. He had not planned to ruin the youth, but simply to let the world, the flesh, and the devil contend against such virtues as they found, while he sat by and watched the struggle. As Olivia predicted, however, power was a dangerous gift to such a man, and, having come to feel that Canaris belonged to him, body and soul, he was ill-pleased at losing him just when a new interest was added to their lives. Yet losing him he assuredly was, and something like wonder mingled with his chagrin, for this girl, whom he had expected to mold to his will, exerted over him, as well as Canaris, a soft control which he could neither comprehend nor conquer. Its charm was its unconsciousness, its power was its truth, for it won gently and held firmly the regard it sought. She certainly did possess the gift of surprises, for, although brought there as a plaything, little Gladys, without apparent effort, had subjugated haughty Olivia, wayward Felix, ruthless Helwise, and none rebelled against her. She ruled them by the irresistible influence of a lovely womanhood, which made her daily life a sweeter poem than any they could write. Why did I not keep her for myself? If she can do so much for him, what might she not have done for me, had I been wise enough to wait, thought Helwise, watching the bright-haired figure that stood looking up to the green roof, whence Canaris was gathering passion flowers. As if some consciousness of his longing reached her, Gladys turned to look into the softly lighted room beyond, and, seeing its master sit there solitary in the midst of its splendor, she obeyed the compassionate impulse which was continually struggling against doubt and dislike. "It must seem very selfish and ungrateful in us to be so glad. Come, Felix, and amuse him as well as me," she said, in a tone meant for his ear alone. But Helwise heard both question and answer. "I have been court fool long enough. 'Tis a thankless office, and I am tired of it," replied Canaris, in the tone of a prisoner asked to go back when the door of his cell stands open. "I must go, for there is Jean with coffee. Follow like a good boy when you have put your posy into a song, which I will set to music by and by as your reward," said Gladys, turning reluctantly away. "You make goodness so beautiful that it is easy to obey. There is my posy set to music at once, for you are a song without words, Carina." And Canaris threw the vine about her neck with a look and a laugh which made it hard for her to go. Jean not only brought coffee, but the card of a friend for Felix, who went away, promising to return. Gladys carefully prepared the black and fragrant draught which Hellwise loved, and presented it, with a sweet friendliness of mien which would have made hemlock palatable, he thought. "Shall I sing to you till Felix comes to give you something better?" she asked, offering her best, as if anxious to atone for the sin of being happy at the cost of pain to another. "Talk a little first. There will be time for both before he remembers us again," answered Hellwise, motioning her to a seat beside him, with a half-imperative, half-courteous look and gesture habitual to him. "He will not forget. Felix always keeps his promises to me," said Gladys, with an air of gentle pride, taking her place, not beside, but opposite Hellwise, on the couch where Elaine had lain not long ago. This involuntary act of hers gave a tone to the conversation which followed, for Hellwise, being inwardly perturbed, was seized with a desire to hover about dangerous topics, and, seeing her sit there, so near and yet so far, so willing to serve, yet so completely mistress of herself, longed to ruffle that composure, if only to make her share the disquiet of which she was the cause. "Always?" he said, lifting his brows with an incredulous expression, as he replied to her assertion. "I seldom ask any promise of him, but when I do, he always keeps it. You doubt that?" "I do." "When you know him as well as I, you will believe it." "I flatter myself that I know him better, and, judging from the past, should call him both fickle and, in some things, false, even to you." Up sprung the color to Gladys's cheek, and her eyes shone with sudden fire, but her voice was low and quiet as she answered quickly. "One is apt to look for what one wishes to find. I seek fidelity and truth, and I shall not be disappointed. Felix may wander, but he will come back to me. I have learned how to hold him now." "Then you are wiser than I. Pray impart the secret." And, putting down his cup, Hellwise regarded her intently, for he saw that the spirit of the woman was roused to defend her wifely rights. "Nay, I owe it to you, and, since it has prevailed against your enchantress, I should thank you for it." The delicate emphasis on the words, "your enchantress," enlightened him to the fact that Gladys divined, in part at least, the cause of Olivia's return. He did not deny, but simply answered, with a curious contrast between the carelessness of the first half of his reply, with the vivid interest of the latter. "Olivia has atoned for her sins handsomely. But what do you owe me? I have taught you nothing. I dare not try." "I did not know my own power till you showed it to me. Unintentionally, I believe, and unconsciously, I used it to such purpose that Felix felt pride in the wife whom he had thought a child before. I mean, the night I sang and acted yonder, and did both well, thanks to you." "I comprehend, and hope to be forgiven, since I gave you help or pleasure," he answered, with no sign of either confusion or regret, though the thought shot through his mind. Can she remember what came after? Questionable help, and painful pleasure, yet it was a memorable hour, and a useful one, so I pardon you, since after the troubled delusion comes a happy reality. There was a double meaning in her words, and a double reproach in the glance which went from the spot where she had played her part to the garland still about her neck. "Your yoke is a light one, and you wear it gracefully. Long may it be so." Hellwise thought to slip away thus from the subject, for those accusing eyes were hard to meet. But Gladys seemed moved to speak with more than her usual candor, as if anxious to leave no doubts behind her, and, sitting in the selfsame place, uttered words which moved him even more than those which she had whispered in a tormented sleep. "No, my yoke is not light," she said, in that grave, sweet voice of hers, looking down at the mystic purple blossom on her breast, with the symbols of a divine passion at its heart. "I put it on too ignorantly, too confidingly, and at times the duties, the responsibilities which I assumed with it weigh heavily. I am just learning how beautiful they are, how sacred they should be, and trying to prove worthy of them. I know that Felix did not love as I loved when he married me. Pity, I believe. No one told me this. I felt, I guessed it, and would have given him back his liberty if, after patient trial, I had found that I could not make him happy. Can you? Yes, thank God, not only happy, but good. And henceforth duty is delight, for I can teach him to love as I love, and he is glad to learn of me. Months before, when the girl Gladys had betrayed her maiden tenderness, she had glowed like the dawn, and found no language but her blushes. Now the woman sat there steadfast and passion-pale, owning her love with the eloquence of fervent speech, both pleading and commanding, in the name of wifehood and motherhood, for the right to claim the man she had won at such cost. And if you fail... I shall not fail unless you come between us. I have won Olivia's promise not to tempt Felix's errant fancy with her beauty. Can I not win yours to abstain from troubling his soul with still more harmful trials? It is to ask this that I speak now, and I believe I shall not speak in vain.
Why?
Helwise bent and looked into her face as he uttered that one word below his breath. He dared do no more, for there was that about her, perilously frank and lovely though she was, which held in check his lawless spirit and made it reverence, even while it rebelled against her power over him. She neither shrank nor turned aside, but studied earnestly that unmoved countenance which hid a world of wild emotion so successfully that even her eyes saw no token of it, except the deepening line between the brows. Because I am bold enough to think that I know you better even than Olivia does, that you are not cold and cruel, and, having given me the right to live for Felix, you will not disturb our peace, that, if I look into your soul as I looked into my husband's, I shall find there what I seek, justice as well as generosity. You shall! I knew you would not disappoint me. For this promise I am more grateful than words can express, since it takes away all fear for Felix, and shows me that I was right in appealing to the heart which you try to kill. Ah, be your best self always, and so make life a blessing, not the curse you often call it, she added, giving him a smile like sunshine, a cordial glance which was more than he could bear. With you I am. Stay, and show me how to do it, he began, stretching both hands towards her with an almost desperate urgency in voice and gesture. But Gladys neither saw nor heard. For at that moment Felix came through the hall, singing one of the few perfect love songs in the world, Che farò senza Eurydice. See, he does keep his promise to me. I knew he would come back, she cried delightedly, and hurried to meet him, leaving Helwise nothing but the passion flowers to fill his empty hands.
End of section 14.
Section 15 of a Modern Mephistopheles. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Yoganand. A Modern Mephistopheles by Louisa May Alcott. Chapter 15. Back again earlier than before, but not to stay long, thank heaven. By another month we will be truly at home, my Gladys, whispered Canaris as they went up the steps in the mellow September sunshine. I hope so, she answered fervently, and paused an instant before entering the door, for coming from the light and warmth without, it seemed as dark and chilly as the entrance to a tomb. You are tired, love? Come and rest before you see your soul. With a new sort of tenderness, Canaris led her up to her own little bower and lingered there to arrange the basket of fresh recruits she had brought for her winter garden, while Gladys lay contentedly on the couch where he placed her, looking about the room as if greeting old friends, but her eyes always came back to him, full of a reposeful happiness which proved that all was well with her. There, now the little fellow sit right comfortably in the moss and will soon feel at home. I'll go find Mother Bland and see what His Serene Highness is about, said the young man, rising from his work, warm and gay, but in no haste to go as he had been before. Gladys remembered that, and when at last he left her, she shut her eyes to relive in thought the 3 blissful months she had spent in teaching him to love her with a love in which self bears no part. Before the happy reverie was half over, the old lady arrived, and by the time the young one was ready, Canaris came to fetch her. My dearest, I'm afraid we must give up our plans, he said softly as he led her away. Helwise is so changed, I come to tell you lest it should shock you when you see him. I think it would be cruel to go at once. Can you wait a little longer? If we ought. How is he changed? Just worn away, as a rock is by the beating of the sea, till there seems little left of him except the big eyes and greater sharpness of both tongue and temper. Say nothing about it, and seem not to notice it, else he will freeze you with a look, as he did me when I exclaimed. Poor man! We will be very patient, very kind, for it must be awful to think of dying with no light beyond, sighed Gladys, touching the cross at her white throat. A Dante without a Beatrice. I am happier than he, and Canaris laid his cheek against hers with a gesture of a boy, the look of a man who has found his solace, which is also his salvation. Helwise received them quietly, a little coldly even, and Gladys reproached herself with too long neglect of what she had assumed as a duty when she saw how ill he looked, as his summer had not been a blissful one. He had spent it in wishing for her and persuading himself that the desire was permissible, since he asked nothing but what she had already given him, her presence and her friendship. It was her intellect he loved and wanted, not her heart, that she might give her husband wholly, since he understood and cared for affection only. Her mind, with all its lovely possibilities, Helwise coveted and reasoned himself into the belief that he had a right to enjoy it, conscious all the while that his purpose was a delusion and a snare. Olivia had mourned over the moody taciturnity which made a lonely cranny of the cliffs his favourite resort, where he sat day after day, watching with an irresistible fascination the ever-changing sea, beautiful and bitter as a hidden tide of thought and feeling in his own breast, where lay the image of Gladys, as placid yet as powerful as the moon which ruled the ebb and flow of that vaster ocean. Being a fatalist for want of a higher faith, he left all to chance, and came home simply resolved to enjoy what was left him as long and as unobtrusively as possible, since Felix owed him much, and Gladys need never know what she had prayed not to know. Sitting at the table as they sat almost a year ago, he watched the two young faces as he had done then, finding each, unlike his own, changed for the better. Gladys was a girl no longer, and the new womanliness which had come to her was of the highest type, for inward beauty lent its imperishable loveliness to features faulty in themselves, and character gave its indiscernible charm to the simplest manners. Helwise saw all this, and perceiving also how much heart had already quickened intellect, began to long for both and to grudge his pupil to a new master. Canaris seemed to have lost something of his boyish comeliness, and had taken on a manlier air of strength and stability, most becoming and evidently a source of pardonable pride to him. At his age, even 3 months could work a serious alteration in one so easily affected by all influences, and Helwise felt a pang of envy as he saw the broad shoulders and vigorous limbs and wholesome colour in the cheeks, and best of all, the serene content of a happy heart. What have you been doing to yourself, Felix? Have you discovered the elixir of life up there? If so, impart the secret and let me have a sip, he said, as Canaris pushed away his plate after satisfying a hearty appetite with the relish of a rustic. Gladys did, he answered, with a nod across the table which said much. She would not let me idle about while waiting for ideas. She just set me to work. I dug acres, it seemed to me, and amazed the gardener with my exploits. Liked it too, for she was overseer and would not let me off till I had done my task and earned my wages. A wonderfully pleasant life, and I am the better for it in spite of my sunburn and blisters. And Canaris stretched out a pair of sinewy brown hands with an air of satisfaction which made Gladys laugh so blithely it was evident that their summer had been full of the innocent jollity of youth, fine weather, and congenial pastime. Adam and Eve in Eden, with all modern improvements, not even a tree of knowledge or serpent to disturb you. Oh yes, we had them both, but we only ate the good fruit, and the snake did not tempt me, cried Gladys, anxious to defend a paradise even from playful mockery. He did me. I longed to kill him, but my Eve owed him no grudge and would not permit me to do it. So the old enemy sunned himself in peace and went into winter quarters, a reformed reptile, I am sure. Canaris did not look up as he spoke, but Helvase asked hastily, "I hope you harvested a few fresh ideas for winter work? We ought to have something to show after so laborious a summer." "I have. I'm going to write a novel or a play. I cannot decide which, but rather lean toward the latter, and being particularly happy, feel inclined to write a tragedy." And something beside the daring of an ambitious author sparkled in the eyes of Canaris fixed upon his patron. It looked too much like the expression of a born man about to become a free man to suit Helvise. But he replied as imperturbably as ever, "Try the tragedy by all means. The novel would be beyond you." "Why, if you please?" demanded Canaris loftily. "Because you have neither patience nor experience enough to do it well. Goethe says, in the novel it is sentiments and events that are exhibited. In the drama it is the characters and deeds. The novel goes slowly forward, the drama must hasten. In the novel some degree of scope may be allowed to chance, but it must be led and guided by the sentiments of the personages. Fate, on the other hand, which, by means of outward, unconnected circumstances, carries forward men without their own concurrence to an unforeseen catastrophe, can only have place in the drama. Chance may produce pathetic situations, but not tragic ones." Helvise paused there abruptly, for the memory which served him so well outran his tongue and recalled the closing sentence of the quotation. Words which he had no mind to utter then and there. Fate ought always to be terrible, and it is in the highest sense tragic when it brings into a ruinous concentration the guilty man and the guiltless with him. "Then you think I could write a play?" asked Canaris with affected carelessness. "I think you could act one, better than imagine or write it." "What? I?" "Yes, you. Because you are dramatic by nature, and it's easier for you to express yourself in gesture and tone than by written or spoken language. You were born for an actor, are fitted for it in every way, and I advise you to try it. It would pay better than poetry, and that stream may run dry." Gladys looked indignant at what she thought bad advice and distasteful pleasantry. But Canaris seemed struck and charmed with a new idea, protesting that he would first write, then act his play, and prove himself a universal genius. No more was said just then, but long afterward the conversation came back to him like an inspiration, and was the seed of a purpose which, through patient effort, bore fruit in a brilliant and successful career. For Canaris, like many another man, did not know his own strength or weakness yet, neither the true gift nor the power of evil which lay unsuspected within him. So the old life began again, at least in outward seeming, but it was impossible for it to last long. The air was too full of the electricity of suppressed and conflicting emotions to be wholesome. Former relations could not be resumed because sincerity had gone out of them, and the quiet which reigned for a time was only the lull before the storm. Gladys soon felt this, but tried to think it was owing to the contrast between the free, happy days she had enjoyed so much, and uttered no complaint. For Felix was busy with his play, sanguine as ever, inspired now by a nobler ambition than before, and happy in his work. Helvise had flattered himself that he could be content with the harmless shadow, since he could not possess the sweet substance of a love whose seeming purity was its most delusive danger. But he soon discovered how bitter a thing it is to look into happiness through another man's eyes, and even while he made no effort to rob Canaris of his treasure, he hated him for possessing it, finding the hatred all the more poignant because it was his own hand which had forced Felix to seize and secure it. He had thought to hold and hide this new secret, but it held him and would not be hidden, for it was stronger than even his strong will, and ruled him with a power which at times filled him with a sort of terror. Having allowed it to grow and taken it to his bosom, he could not cast it out again, and it became a torment, not the comfort he had hoped to find it. His daily affliction was to see how much the young pair were to each other, to read in their faces 100 happy hopes and confidences in which he had no part, and to remember the confession wrung from the lips dearest to him that his death would bring to them their much-desired freedom. At times he was minded to say, "Go," but the thought of the utter blank her absence would leave behind taunted him. Often an almost uncontrollable desire to tell her that which would mar her trust in her husband tempted him, for having yielded to a greater temptation, all lesser ones seemed innocent beside it. And worse than all, the old morbid longing for some excitement, painful even, if it could not be pleasurable, goaded him to the utterance of half-truths which irritated Canaris and perplexed Gladys till she could no longer doubt the cause of his strange mood. It seemed as if her innocent hand gave the touch which set the avalanche slipping swiftly but silently to its destructive fall. One day, when Helwise was pacing to and fro in the library, driven by the inward storm which no outward sign betrayed, except his excessive pallor and unusual restlessness, she looked up from a book, asking compassionately, "Are you suffering, sir?" "Torment. Can I do nothing?" "Nothing." She went on reading, as if glad to be left in peace, for distress as well as pity looked out from her frank eyes, and there was no longer any pleasure in the duties she performed for Canaris's sake. But Helwise, jealous even of the book which seemed to absorb her, soon paused again to ask, in a calmer tone, "What interests you?" "The scarlet letter." The hands loosely clasped behind him were locked more closely by an involuntary gesture, as if the words made him wince. Otherwise unmoved, he asked again, with the curiosity he often showed about her opinions of all she read, "What do you think of Hester?" "I admire her courage, for she repented, and did not hide her sin with a lie." "Then you must despise Dimmesdale?" "I ought perhaps, but I cannot help pitying his weakness, while I detest his deceit. He loved so much." So did Roger, and Helwise drew nearer, with a peculiar flicker in his eyes as of a light kindled suddenly behind a carefully drawn curtain. "At first, then his love turned to hate, and he committed the unpardonable sin," answered Gladys, much moved by that weird and wonderful picture of guilt and its atonement. "The unpardonable sin," echoed Helwise, struck by her words and manner. Hawthorne sometimes describes it as the want of love and reverence for the human soul which makes a man pry into its mysterious depths, not with the hope or purpose of making it better, but from a cold philosophical curiosity. This would be the separation of the intellect from the heart, and this perhaps would be as unpardonable a sin as to doubt God, whom we cannot harm, for in doing this we must inevitably do great wrong both to ourselves and others. As she spoke fast and earnestly, Gladys felt herself upon the brink of a much-desired but much-dreaded explanation. For Canaris, while owing to her that there was a secret, would not tell it till Helwise freed him from his promise. She thought that he delayed to ask his absolution till she was fitter to bear the truth, whatever it might be, and she had resolved to spare her husband the pain of an avowal by demanding it herself of Helwise. The moment seemed to have come, and both knew it, for he regarded her with a quick, piercing look which read her purpose before she could put it into words. "You're right. Yet Roger was a wronged one, and the others deserved to suffer." "They did, but Hester's suffering ennobled him, because nobly born. Dimmesdale's destroyed him, because he paltered weakly with his conscience. Roger let his wrong turn him from a man into a devil, and deserves the contempt and horror he rouses in us. The keeping of the secret makes a romance. The confession of it is a moral, showing how falsehood can ruin a life, and truth only save it at the last. Never have a secret, Gladys. They are hard masters, whom we hate, yet dare not rebel against." His accent of sad sincerity seemed to clear the way for her, and she spoke out briefly and bravely. "Sir, you dare anything. Tell me what it is which makes Felix obey you against his will. He owns it, but will not speak till you consent. Tell me, I beseech you." "Could you hear it?" he asked, admiring her courage, yet doubtful of the wisdom of purchasing a moment's satisfaction at such a cost. For though he could cast down her idol, he dared not set up another in its place. "Try me," she cried. "Nothing can lessen my love, and doubt afflicts me more than the hardest truth." "I fear not. With you, love and respect go hand in hand, and some sins you would find very hard to pardon." Involuntarily, Gladys shrunk a little, and her eye questioned his inscrutable face as she answered slowly, thinking only of her husband. "Something very mean and false would be hard to forgive, but not some youthful fault, some shame borne for others, or even a crime if a very human emotion, a generous but mistaken motive led to it. Then this secret is better left untold, for it would try you sorely to know that Felix had been guilty of the fault you find harder to forgive than a crime, deceit. Wait a little till you are accustomed to the thought, then you shall have the facts, and pity, even while you must despise him. While he spoke, Gladys sat like one nerving to receive a blow, but at the last words she suddenly put up a hand as if to arrest it, saying hurriedly, "No, do not tell me. I cannot bear it yet, nor from you. He shall tell me. It will be easier so, and less like treachery. Oh, sir," she added in a passionately pleading tone, "use mercifully whatever bitter knowledge you possess. Remember how young he is, how neglected as a boy, how tempted he may have been, and deal generously, honorably with him, and with me." Her voice broke there. She spread her hands before her eyes and fled out of the room, as if in his face she read a more disastrous confession than any Felix could ever make. Helvai stood motionless, looking as he looked the night. She spoke more frankly but less forcibly, and when she vanished, he stole away to his own room as he stole then. Only now his usually colourless cheek burned with a fiery flush, and his hand went involuntarily to his breast, as if, like Dimmesdale, he carried an invisible scarlet letter branded there. The end of section 15.
Chapter 16 of A Modern Mephistopheles. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Allison. A Modern Mephistopheles by Louisa May Alcott. 16. Neither had heard the door of that inner room open quietly. Neither had seen Canaris stand upon the threshold for an instant, then draw back, looking as if he had found another skeleton to hide in the cell where he was laboring at the third act of the tragedy which he was to live, not write. He had heard the last words Gladys said. He had seen the last look Helwise wore, and, like a flash of lightning, the truth struck and stunned him. At first he sat staring aghast at the thing he plainly saw, yet hardly comprehended. Then a sort of fury seized and shook him, as he sprang up with hands clenched, eyes ablaze, looking as if about to instantly avenge the deadliest injury one man could do another. But the half-savage self-control adversity had taught stood him in good stead now, curbing the first natural but reckless wrath which nerved every fibre of his strong young body with an almost irresistible impulse to kill Helwise without a word. The gust of blind passion subsided quickly into a calmer but not less dangerous mood, and, fearing to trust himself so near his enemy, Canaris rushed away, to walk fast and far, unconscious where he went, till the autumnal gloaming brought him back, master of himself, he thought. While he wandered aimlessly about the city, he had been recalling the past with the vivid skill which at such intense moments seems to bring back half-forgotten words, apparently unnoticed actions, and unconscious impressions, as fire causes invisible letters to stand out upon a page where they were traced in sympathetic ink. Not a doubt of Gladys disturbed the ever-deepening current of a love the more precious for its newness, the more powerful for its ennobling influence. But every instinct of his nature rose in revolt against Helwise, all the more rebellious and resentful for the long subjection in which he had been held. A master stronger than the ambition which had been the ruling passion of his life so far asserted its supremacy now, and made it possible for him to pay the price of liberty without further weak delay or unmanly regret. This he resolved upon, and this he believed he could accomplish safely and soon. But if Helwise, with far greater skill and self-control, had failed to guide or subdue the conflicting passions let loose among them, how could Canaris hope to do it, or retard by so much as 1 minute the irresistible consequences of their acts? The providence of God cannot be hurried, and his retribution falls at the appointed time, saving even when it seems to destroy. Returning resolute but weary, Canaris was relieved to find that a still stronger reprieve was granted him, for Olivia was there, and Gladys, apparently absorbed in the tender toil women love, making ready for the Christmas gift she hoped to give him. Helwise sent word that he was suffering one of his bad attacks, and bade them all good night, so there was nothing to mar the last quiet evening these three were ever to pass together. When Canaris had seen Olivia to the winter quarters she inhabited nearby, he went up to his own room, where Gladys lay, looking like a child who had cried itself to sleep. The sight of the pathetic patience, touched with slumber's peace, in the tear-stained face upon the pillow, wrung his heart, and, stooping, he softly kissed the hand upon the coverlet, the small hand that wore a wedding ring, now grown too large for it. "God bless my dearest," he whispered, with a sob in his throat. "Out of this accursed house she shall go tomorrow, though I leave all but love and liberty behind me." Sleepless, impatient, and harassed by thoughts that would not let him rest, he yielded to the uncanny attraction which the library now had for him, and went down again, deluding himself with the idea that he could utilize emotion and work for an hour or two. The familiar room looked strange to him, and when the door of Helwise's apartment opened quietly, he started, although it was only Stern, coming to nap before the comfortable fire. Something in Canaris's expectant air and attitude made the man answer the question his face seemed to ask. "Quiet at last, sir. He has had no sleep for many nights, and is fairly worn out." "You look so too. Go and rest a little. I shall be here writing for several hours, and can see to him," said Canaris kindly, as the poor old fellow respectfully tried to swallow a portentous gape behind his hand. "Thank you, Mr. Felix. It would be a comfort just to lose myself. Master is not likely to want anything, but if he should call, just step and give him his drops, please. They are all ready. I fixed them myself. He is so careless when he is half asleep, and, not being used to this new stuff, an overdose might kill him." Giving these directions, Stern departed with alacrity, and left Canaris to his watch. He had often done as much before, but never with such a sense of satisfaction as now, and though he carefully abstained from giving himself a reason for the act, no sooner had the valet gone than he went to look in upon Helwise, longing to call out commandingly, "Wake, and hear me!" But the helplessness of the man disarmed him. The peaceful expression of the sharp, white features mutely reproached him. The recollection of what he would awaken to made Canaris ashamed to exult over a defeated enemy, and he turned away, with an almost compassionate glance at the straight, still figure, clearly defined against the dusky background of the darkened room. "He looks as if he were dead." Canaris did not speak aloud, but it seemed as if a voice echoed the words with a suggestive emphasis that made him pause as he approached the study table, conscious of a quick thrill of comprehension tingling through him like an answer. Why he covered both ears with a sudden gesture he could not tell, nor why he hastily seated himself, caught up the first book at hand, and began to read without knowing what he read. Only for an instant, however, then the words grew clear before him, and his eyes rested on this line: "Thy ominous tongue gives utterance to thy wish." He dropped the book, as if it had burnt him, and looked over his shoulder, almost expecting to see the dark thought lurking in his mind take shape before him. Empty, dim, and quiet was the lofty room, but a troubled spirit and distempered imagination peopled it with such vivid and tormenting phantoms of the past, the present, and the future, that he scarcely knew whether he was awake or dreaming, as he sat there alone, waiting for midnight, and the spectre of an uncommitted deed. His wandering eye fell on a leaf of paper, lying half shriveled by the heat of the red fire. This recalled the hour when, in the act of burning that first manuscript, Helwise had saved him, and all that followed shortly after. Not a pleasant memory, it seemed, for his face darkened, and his glance turned to a purple-covered volume, left on the low chair where Gladys usually sat, and often read in that beloved book. A still more bitter recollection bowed his head at sight of it, till some newer, sharper thought seemed to pierce him with a sudden stab, and he laid his clenched hand on the pile of papers before him, as if taking an oath more binding than the one made there 3 years ago. He had been reading Shakespeare lately, for one may copy the great masters, and now, as he tried with feverish energy to work upon his play, the grim or gracious models he had been studying seemed to rise and live before him, but one and all were made subject to the strong passions which ruled him. Jealousy, ambition, revenge, and love wore their appropriate guise, acted their appropriate parts, and made him one with them. Othello would only show himself as stabbing the perfidious Iago. Macbeth always grasped at the air-drawn dagger. Hamlet was continually completing his fateful task, and Romeo whispered with the little vial at his lips, "O true apothecary, thy drugs are quick." Canaris tried to chase away these troubled spirits, but they would not down, and yielding to them, he let his mind wander as it would, till he had supped full of horrors, feeling as if in the grasp of a nightmare which led him, conscious but powerless, toward some catastrophe forefelt rather than foreseen. How long this lasted he never knew, for nothing broke the silence, growing momently more terrible as he listened to the stealthy tread of the temptation coming nearer and nearer, till it appeared in the likeness of himself, while a voice said, in the ordinary tone which so often makes dreams grotesque at their most painful climax, "Master is so careless when half asleep, and not being used to this new stuff, an overdose might kill him." As if these words were the summons for which he had been waiting, Canaris rose up suddenly and went into that other room, too entirely absorbed by the hurrying emotions which swept him away to see what looked like a new phantom coming in. It might have been the shade of young Juliet, gentle Desdemona, poor Ophelia, or better still, the eidolon of Margaret, wandering, pale and pensive, through the baleful darkness of this Walpurgis Nacht. He did not see it. He saw nothing but the glass upon the table where the dim light burned, the little vial with its colorless contents, and Helwise stirring in his bed, as if about to wake and speak. Conscious only of the purpose which now wholly dominated him, Canaris, without either haste or hesitation, took the bottle, uncorked, and held it over the glass half filled with water. But before a single drop could fall, a cold hand touched his own, and, with a start that crushed the vial in his grasp, he found himself eye to eye with Gladys. Guilt was frozen upon his face, terror upon hers, but neither spoke, for a third voice muttered drowsily, "Stern, give me more. Don't rouse me." Canaris could not stir, but Gladys whispered with white lips and her hand upon the glass, "Dare I give it?" He could only answer by a sign, and cowered into the shadow, while she put the draught to Helwise's lips, fearing to let him waken now. He drank drowsily, yet seemed half conscious of her presence, for he looked up with sleep-drunken eyes, and murmured, as if to the familiar figure of a dream, "Mine asleep, his awake." Then whispering brokenly about Felix, Vivian, and daring anything, he was gone again into the lethargy which alone could bring forgetfulness. Gladys feared her husband should hear the almost inaudible words, but he had vanished, and when she glided out to join him, carefully closing the door behind her, a glance showed that her fear was true. Relieved, yet not repentant, he stood there, looking at a red stain on his hand, with such a desperate expression that Gladys could only cling to him, saying in a terror-stricken whisper, "Felix, for God's sake, come away! What are you doing here?" "Going mad, I think," he answered under his breath, but added, lifting up his hand with an ominous gesture, "I would have done it if you had not stopped me. It would be better for us all if he were dead." "Not so. Thank heaven I came in time to save you from the sin of murder," she said, holding fast the hand as yet unstained by any blood but its own. "Have committed murder in my heart. Why not profit by the sin, since it is there? I hate that man. I have cause, and you know it." "No, no, not at all. You should tell me everything, but not now, not here." "The time has come, and this is the place to tell it. Sit there and listen. I must untie or cut the snarl tonight." He pointed to the great chair, and, grateful for anything that could change or stem the dangerous current of his thoughts, Gladys sank down, feeling as if, after this shock, she was prepared for any discovery or disaster. Canaris stood before her, white and stern, as if he were both judge and culprit, for a somber wrath still burned in his eye, and his face worked with the mingled shame and contempt warring within him. "I heard and saw this afternoon, when you two talked together yonder, and I knew then what made you so glad to go away, so loath to come back. You have had a secret as well as I." "I was never sure until today. Do not speak of that. It is enough to know it, and forget it if we can. Tell your secret. It has burdened you so long, you will be glad to end it. He would have done so, but I would not let him. I thought it would be hard to tell you, yet now my fault looks so small and innocent beside his, I can confess without much shame or fear." But it was not easy, for he had gone so far into a deeper, darker world that night, it was difficult to come to lesser sins and lighter thoughts. As he hesitated for a word, his eye fell upon the purple-covered book, and he saw a way to shorten his confession. Catching up a pen, he bent over the volume an instant, then handed it to Gladys, open at the title page. She knew it, the dear romance worn with much reading, and looked wonderingly at the black mark drawn through the name Felix Canaris, and the words Jasper Helwise written boldly below. "What does it mean?" she asked, refusing to believe the discovery which the expression of his averted face confirmed. "That I am a living lie. He wrote that book." "He?" "Every line." "But not the other?" she said, clinging to a last hope, as everything seemed falling about her. "All, except half a dozen of the songs." Down dropped the book between them. now a thing of little worth, and, trying to conceal from him the contempt which even love could not repress, Gladys hid her face, with one reproach, the bitterest she could have uttered. "Oh, my husband, did you give up honor, liberty, and peace for so poor a thing as that?" It cut him to the soul, for now he saw how high a price he had paid for an empty name, how mean and poor his ambition looked, how truly he deserved to be despised for that of which he had striven to be proud. Gladys had so rejoiced over him as a poet that it was the hardest task of all to put off his borrowed singing robes and show himself an ordinary man. He forgot that there was any other tribunal than this, as he stood waiting for his sentence, oppressed with the fear that out of her almost stern sense of honor she might condemn him to the loss of the respect and confidence which he had lately learned to value as much as happiness and love. "You must despise me, but if you knew," he humbly began, unable to bear the silence longer. "Tell me then, I will not judge until I know." And Gladys, just even in her sorrow, looked up with an expression which said plainer than words, "For better, for worse. This is the worst, but I love you still." That made it possible for him to go on, fast and low, not stopping to choose phrases, but pouring out the little story of his temptation and fall with a sense of intense relief that he was done with slavery forever. Neither of us coolly planned this thing. It came about so simply and naturally it seemed a mere accident, and yet who can tell what he might have planned, seeing how weak I was, how ready to be tempted. It happened in that second month, when I promised to stay, he to help me with my book. It was all mine then, but when we came to look at it, there was not enough to fill even the most modest volume, for I had burnt many, and must recall them or write more. I tried honestly, but the power was not in me, and I fell into despair again, for the desire to be known was the breath of my life. "You will be, if not in this way, in some other, for power of some sort is in you. Believe it, and wait for it to show itself," said Gladys, anxious to add patience and courage to the new humility and sincerity which could not fail to ennoble and strengthen him in time. "Bless you for that," he answered gratefully, and hurried on. "It came about in this wise. One day my master, he was then, but is no longer, thank God, sat reading over a mass of old papers, before destroying them. Here he came upon verses written in the diaries kept years ago, and threw them to me, to laugh over, as he said. I did not laugh. I was filled with envy and admiration, and begged him to publish them. He scorned the idea, and bade me put them in the fire. I begged to keep them, and then, Gladys, I swear to you I cannot tell whether I read the project in his face, or whether my own evil genius put it into my head. Then I said, audaciously, though hardly dreaming he would consent, "You do not care for fame, and throw these away as worthless. I long for it, and see more power in these than in any I can hope to write for years, perhaps. Let me add them to mine, and see what will come of it." "Put your own name to them if you do, and take the consequences," he answered, in that brusque way of his which seemed so careless, yet is so often premeditated. I assented, as I would have done to anything that promised a quick trial of my talent. For in my secret soul I thought some of my songs better than his metaphysical verses, which impressed rather than charmed me. The small imposture seemed to amuse him. I had few scruples then, and we did it, with much private jesting about Beaumont and Fletcher, literary frauds, and borrowed plumage. You know the rest. The book succeeded, but he saved it, and the critics left me small consolation, for my songs were ignored as youthful ditties. His poems won all the praise, and I was pronounced a second Shelley. "But he? Did he claim no share of the glory? Was he content to let you have it all?" questioned Gladys, trying to understand a thing so foreign to her nature that it seemed incredible. "Yes. I offered to come down from my high place as soon as I realized how little right I had to it, but he forbade me, saying, what I was fool enough to believe, that my talent only needed time and culture, and the sunshine of success to ripen it, that notoriety would be a burden to him, since he had neither health to sustain nor spirits to enjoy it, that in me he would live his youth over again, and, in return for such help as he could give, I should be a son to him. That touched and won me. Now I can see in it a trap to catch and hold me, that he might amuse himself with my folly, play the generous patron, and twist my life to suit his ends. He likes curious and costly toys. He had one then, and has not paid for it yet. This other book? Tell me of that, and speak low, or he may hear us," whispered Gladys, trembling lest fire and powder should meet. With a motion of his foot, Canaris sent the book that lay between them, spinning across the hearthrug out of sight, and answered, with a short, exultant laugh, "Ah, there the fowler is taken in his own snare. I did not see it then, and found it hard to understand why he should exert himself to please you by helping me. I thought it was a mere freak of literary rivalry, and when I taxed him with it, he owned that, though he cared nothing for the world's praise, it was pleasant to know that his powers were still unimpaired, and be able to laugh in his sleeve at the deluded critics. That was like him, and it deceived me till today. Now I know that he begrudged me your admiration, wanted your tears and smiles for himself, and did not hesitate to steal them. The night he so adroitly read his work for mine, he tempted me through you. I had resolved to deserve the love and honor you gave me, and again I tried, and again I failed, for my romance was a poor, pale thing to his. He had read it, and taking the same plot, made it what you know, writing as only such a man could write, when a strong motive stimulated him to do his best. But why did you submit? Why stand silent and let him do so false a thing? Cried poor Gladys, wondering when the end of the tangle would come. At first his coolness staggered me, then I was curious to hear, then held even, against my will, by admiration of the thing, and you. I meant to speak out, I longed to do it, but it was very hard, while you were praising me so eloquently. The words were on my lips, when in his face I saw a look that sealed them. He meant that I should utter the self-accusation which would lower me forever and raise him in your regard. I could not bear it. There was no time to think, only to feel, and I vowed to make you happy at all costs. I hardly thought he would submit, but he did, and I believe that it was through surprise at being outwitted for the moment, or pity towards you. It was neither. He fancied I had discovered his secret, and he dared not defy me then. But after, when I was gone, you were so late that night, I heard your voices, sharp and angry as I went away. Yes, that was my hour, and I enjoyed it. He had often twitted me with the hold he had on my name and fame, and I bore it, for till I loved you, they were the dearest things I owned. That night I told him that he should not speak, that you should enjoy your pride in me, even at his expense, and I refused to release him from his bond, as he had, more than once, refused to release me, for we had sworn never to confess till both agreed to it. Good heavens, how low he must have thought I had fallen, if I could consent to buy your happiness at the cost of my honor. He did think it. That made him yield. That is the cause of the contempt he has not cared to hide from me since then. And that adds a double edge to my hatred now. I was to be knave as well as fool, and while I blinded myself with his reflected light, he would have filched my one jewel from me. Gladys, save me, keep me, or I shall do something desperate yet. Beside himself with humiliation, remorse, and wrath, Canaris flung himself down before her, as if only by clinging to that frail spar could he ride out the storm in which he was lost without compass or rudder. Then Gladys showed him that such love as hers could not fail, but, like an altar fire, glowed the stronger for every costly sacrifice thrown therein. Lifting up the discrowned head, she laid it on her bosom with a sweet motherliness which comforted more than her tender words. My poor Felix, you have suffered enough for this deceit. I forgive it, and keep my reproaches for the false friend who led you astray. It was so paltry, weak, and selfish. You must despise me, he said wistfully, still thinking more of his own pain than hers. I do despise the sin, not the dear sinner who repents and is an honest man again, but a beggar. We have each other. Hush, stand up. Someone is coming. Canaris had barely time to spring to his feet when Stern came in and was about to pass on in silence, though much amazed to see Gladys there at that hour, when the expression of the young man's face made him forget decorum and stop short, exclaiming anxiously, "Mr. Felix, what's the matter? Is master worse?" "Safe and asleep. Mrs. Canaris came to see what I was about." "Then, sir, if I may make so bold, the sooner she gets to bed again, the better. It is far too late for her to be down here. The poor young lady looks half dead," Stern whispered, with the freedom of an old servant. "You are right. Come, love." And without another word, Canaris led her away, leaving Stern to shake his gray head as he looked after them. Gladys was utterly exhausted, and in the hall she faltered a little, saying, with a patient sigh, as she looked up the long stairway, "Dear, wait a little. It is so far. My strength is all gone." Canaris caught her in his arms and carried her away, asking himself with a remorseful pang that rent his heart, "Is this the murder I have committed?" End of chapter 16. Chapter 17 of A Modern Mephistopheles. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Allison. A Modern Mephistopheles by Louisa May Alcott. 17. Stern. Yes, sir. What time is it? Past 2, sir. What news? I see bad tidings of some sort in that lugubrious face of yours. Out with it. The little boy arrived at dawn, sir, answered old Stern with a paternal air. What little boy? Canaris Junior, sir, simpered the valet, venturing to be jocose. The deuce he did! Precipitate, like his father. Where is Felix? With her, sir, in a state of mind, as well he may be, letting that delicate young thing sit up to keep him company over his poetry stuff, muttered Stern, busying himself with the shutters. Sit up? When? Where? What are you maundering about, man? And Hellwise himself sat up among the pillows, looking unusually wide awake. Last night, sir, in the study. Mr. Felix made me go for a wink of sleep, and when I came back, about 1, there sat Mrs. Canaris, as white as her gown, and him looking as wild as a hawk. Something was amiss, I could see plain enough, but it wasn't my place to ask questions. So I just made bold to suggest that it was late for her to be up, and he took her away, looking dazed-like. That's all I know, sir, till I found the women in a great frustration this morning. And I slept through it all? Yes, sir, so soundly, I was a bit anxious till you waked. I found the glass empty and the bottle smashed, and I was afraid you might have taken too much of that coral while half asleep. No fear. Nothing kills me. Now get me up. And Hellwise made his toilet with a speed and energy which caused Stern to consider coral a wonderful discovery. A pretense of breakfast, then Hellwise sat down to wait for further tidings, externally quite calm, internally tormented by a great anxiety, till Olivia came in, full of cheering news and sanguine expectations. Gladys is asleep with baby on her arm, and Felix adoring in the background. Poor boy, he cannot bear much, and is quite bowed down with remorse for something he has done. Do you know what? As she spoke, Olivia stooped to pick up a book half hidden by the fringe of a low chair. It lay face downward, and, in smoothing the crumpled leaves before closing it, she caught sight of a black and blotted name. So did Hellwise. A look of intelligence flashed over his face, and, taking the volume quickly, he answered, with his finger on the title page. Yes, now I know, and so may you, for if one woman is in the secret, it will soon be out. Felix wrote that, and it is true. I thought so. One woman has known it for a long time. Nevertheless, the secret was kept for your sake. And Olivia's dark face sparkled with malicious merriment, as she saw the expression of mingled annoyance, pride, and pleasure in his. My compliments and thanks. You are the 8th wonder of the world. But what led you to suspect this little fraud of ours? I did not, till the last book came. Then I was struck here and there by certain peculiar phrases, certain tender epithets, which I think no one ever heard from your lips but me. These, in the hero's mouth, made me sure that you had helped Canaris, if not done the whole yourself. And his odd manner at times confirmed my suspicion. You have a good memory. I forgot that. I have had so few such words from you that it is easy to remember them, murmured Olivia reproachfully. It seemed to touch him, for just then he felt deserted, well knowing that he had lost both Felix and Gladys. But Olivia never would desert him, no matter what discovery was made, or who might fall away. He thanked her for her devotion, with the first ray of hope given for years, as he said, in the tone so seldom heard, You shall have more henceforth, for you are a staunch friend, and now I have no other. Dear Jasper, you shall never find me wanting. I will be true to the death, she cried, blooming suddenly into her best and brightest beauty, with the delight of this rare moment. Then, fearing to express too much, she wisely turned again to Felix, asking curiously, But why did you let this young doll deck himself out in your plumes? It enrages me to think of his receiving the praise and honor due to you. He told her briefly, adding with more than his accustomed bitterness, What did I want with praise and honor? To be gaped and gossiped about would have driven me mad. It pleased that vain boy as much as fooling the public amused me. A whim, and, being a dishonest one, we shall both have to pay for it, I suppose. What will he do? He has told Gladys to begin with, and, if it had been possible, would have taken some decisive step today. He can do nothing sagely and quietly. There must be a dramatic denouement to every chapter of his life. I think he has one now, Hellwise laughed, as he struck back the leaves of the book he still held, and looked at the dashing signature of his own name. He wrote that, then? Asked Olivia. Yes, here, at midnight, while I lay asleep and let him tell the tale as he liked to Gladys. No wonder it startled her, so tragically given. The sequel may be more tragic yet. I seem to feel it in the air. What shall you do? Asked Olivia, more anxiously than before, for Helwise looked up with as sinister an expression as if he knew how desperate an enemy had stood over him last night, and when his own turn came would be less merciful. Do? Nothing. They will go. I shall stay. Tongues will wag, and I shall be tormented. I shall seem the gainer, he the loser, but it will not be so. Involuntarily, his eye went to the little chair where Gladys would sit no longer, and darkened as if some light had gone out which used to cheer and comfort him. Olivia saw it and could not restrain the question that broke from her lips. You do love her, Jasper? I shall miss her, but you shall take her place. Calm and a little scornful was his face, his voice quite steady, and a smile was shed upon her with the last welcome words. But Olivia was not deceived. The calmness was unnatural, the voice too steady, the smile too sudden, and her heart sank as she thanked him, without another question. For a while they sat together, playing well their parts. Then she went away to Gladys, and he was left to several hours of solitary musing. Had he been a better man, he would not have sinned. Had he been a worse one, he could not have suffered. Being what he was, he did both, and, having no one else to study now, looked deeply into himself, and was dismayed at what he saw. For the new love, purer, yet more hopeless than the old, shone like a star above an abyss, showing him whither he had wandered in the dark. Sunset came, filling the room with its soft splendor, and he watched the red rays linger longest in Gladys's corner. Her little basket stood as she left it. Her books lay orderly. Her desk was shut. A dead flower drooped from the slender vase, and across the couch trailed a soft white shawl she had been wont to wear. Helwise did not approach the spot, but stood afar off, looking at these small, familiar things with the melancholy fortitude of one inured to loss and pain. Regret rather than remorse possessed him as he thought drearily, a year tomorrow since she came. How shall I exist without her? Where will her new home be? An answer was soon given to the last question, for while his fancy still hovered about that nook, and the gentle presence which had vanished as the sunshine was fast vanishing, Canaris came in wearing such an expression of despair that Helwise recoiled, leaving half-uttered a playful inquiry about the little son. I have no son. Dead? Dead. I have murdered both. But Gladys? Dying. She asked for you. Come. No need of that hoarse command. Helwise was gone at the first word, swiftly through room and hall, up the stairs he had not mounted for months, straight to that chamber door. There a hand clutched his shoulder. A breathless voice said, Here, I am first. And Canaris passed in before him, motioning away a group of tearful women as he went. Helwise lingered, pale and panting, till they were gone. Then he looked and listened, as if turned to stone, for in the heart of the hush lay Gladys, talking softly to the dead baby on her arm, not mourning over it, but yearning with maternal haste to follow and cherish the creature of her love. Only a day old, so young to go away alone. Even in heaven you will want your mother, darling, and she will come. Sleep, my baby, I will be with you when you wake. A stifled sound of anguish recalled the happy soul, already halfway home, and Gladys turned her quiet eyes to her husband bending over her. Dear, will he come? She whispered. He is here. He was, and, standing on either side of the bed, the two men seemed unconscious of each other, intent only upon her. Feebly she drew the white cover over the little cold thing in her bosom, as if too sacred for any eyes but hers to see, then lifted up her hand with a beseeching glance from one haggard face to the other. They understood. Each gave the hand she asked, and, holding them together, with the last effort of failing strength, she said, clear and low, Forgive each other for my sake. Neither spoke, having no words, but by a mute gesture answered as she wished. Something brighter than a smile rested on her face, and, as if satisfied, she turned again to Canaris, seeming to forget all else in the tender farewell she gave him. Remember, love, remember, we shall be waiting for you. The new home will not be home to us until you come. As her detaining touch was lifted, the two hands fell apart, never to meet again. Canaris knelt down to lay his head beside hers on the pillow, to catch the last accents of the beloved voice, sweet even now. Helwise, forgotten by them both, drew back into the shadow of the deep red curtains, still studying with an awful curiosity the great mystery of death, asking, even while his heart grew cold within him, Will the faith she trusted sustain her now? It did, for leaning on the bosom of infinite love, like a confiding child in its father's arms, without a doubt or fear to mar her peace, a murmur or lament to make the parting harder, Gladys went to her own place. End of chapter 17.
Section 18 of A Modern Mephistopheles by Louisa May Alcott. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Christine Rutger. A Modern Mephistopheles by Louisa May Alcott. Chapter 18. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come? Is this one? Was the vague feeling, rather than thought, of which Hellwise was dimly conscious, as he lay in what seemed a grave, so cold, so dead he felt, so powerless and pent, in what he fancied was his coffin. He remembered the slow rising of a tide of helplessness, which chilled his blood and benumbed his brain, till the last idea to be distinguished was, "I am dying. Shall I meet Gladys?" Then came oblivion, and now, what was this? Something was alive still, something which strove to see, move, speak, yet could not, till the mist, which obscured every sense, should clear away. A murmur was in the air, growing clearer every instant, as it rose and fell, like the muffled sound of waves upon a distant shore. Presently he recognized human voices, and the words they uttered, words which had no meaning till, like an electric shock, intelligence returned, bringing with it a great fear. Olivia was mourning over him, and he felt her tears upon his face. But it was not this which stung him to sudden life. It was another voice, saying low, but with a terrible distinctness, "There is no hope. He may remain so for some years, but sooner or later the brain will share the paralysis of the body, and leave our poor friend in a state I grieve to think of." "No!" burst from Hellwise with an effort which seemed to dispel the trance which held his faculties. Stir he could not, but speak he did, and opened wide the eyes which had been closed for hours. With the unutterable relief of one roused from a nightmare, he recognized his own room, Olivia's tender face bent over him, and his physician holding a hand that had no feeling in it. "Not dead yet," he muttered with a feeble sort of exultation, adding, with as feeble a despair and doubt, "But she is. Did I dream that?" "Alas, no." And Olivia wiped away her own tears from the forehead which began to work with the rush of returning memory and thought. "What does this numbness mean? Why are you here?" he asked as his eyes went from one face to the other. "Dear Jasper, it means that you are ill. Stern found you unconscious in your chair last night. You are much better now, but it alarmed us, for we thought you dead," replied Olivia, knowing that he would have the truth at any cost. "I remember thinking it was death, and being glad of it. Why did you bring me back? I had no wish to come." She forgave the ingratitude, and went on chafing the cold hand so tenderly that Hellwise reproached no more, but, turning to the physician, demanded, with a trace of the old imperiousness coming back into his feeble voice, "Is this to be the end of it?" "I fear so, Mr. Hellwise. You will not suffer any more. Let that comfort you." "My body may not, but my mind will suffer horribly. Good heavens, man, do you call this death in life a comfortable end? How long have I got to lie here watching my wits go?" "It is impossible to say." "But certain, sooner or later?" "There is a chance. Your brain has been overworked. It must have rest," began the doctor, trying to soften the hard facts, since his patient would have them. "Rest? Kill me at once, then. Annihilation would be far better than such rest as that. I will not lie here waiting for imbecility. Put an end to this, or let me," cried Hellwise, struggling to lift his powerless right hand, and finding it impossible. He looked about him with an impotent desperation which wrung Olivia's heart and alarmed the physician, although he had long foreseen this climax. Both vainly tried to soothe and console, but after that one despairing appeal, Hellwise turned his face to the wall and lay so for hours. Asleep, they hoped, but in reality tasting the first bitterness of the punishment sent upon him as an expiation for the sin of misusing one of heaven's best gifts. No words could describe the terror such a fate had for him, since intellect had been his god, and he already felt it tottering to its fall. On what should he lean if that were taken? Where see any ray of hope to make the present endurable? Where find any resignation to lighten the gloom of such a future? Restless mind and lawless will, now imprisoned in a helpless body, preyed on each other like wild creatures caged, finding it impossible to escape, and as impossible to submit. Death would not have daunted him. Pain he had learned to endure, but this slow decay of his most precious possession he could not bear, and suffered a new martyrdom, infinitely sharper than the old. How time went he never knew, for, although merciful unconsciousness was denied him, his thoughts, like avenging furies, drove him from one bitter memory to another, probing his soul as he had probed others, and tormenting him with an almost supernatural activity of brain before its long rest began. Ages seemed to pass, while he took no heed of what went on about him. People came and went, faces bent over him, hands ministered to him, and voices whispered in the room. He knew all this without the desire to do so, longing only to forget and be forgotten, with an increasing irritation, which slowly brought him back from that inner world of wordless pain to the outer one which must be faced and in some fashion endured. Olivia still sat near him, as if she had not stirred, though it was morning when last he spoke, and now night had come. The familiar room was dim and still, everything already ordered for his comfort, and a brilliant cousin had transformed herself into a quiet nurse. The rustling silks were replaced by a soft gray gown, the ornaments all gone, even the fine hair was half hidden by the little kerchief of lace tied over it. Yet never had Olivia been more beautiful, for now the haughty queen had changed to a sad woman, wearing for her sole ornaments constancy and love. Worn and weary she looked, but a sort of sorrowful content was visible, a jealous tenderness which plainly told that for her, at least, there was a drop of honey even in the new affliction, since it made him more her own than ever. Poor soul! She promised to be faithful to the death, and she will be, even such a death as this. A sigh, that was almost a groan, broke from Hellwise as the thought came, and Olivia was instantly at his side. "Are you suffering, Jasper? What can I do for you?" she said with such a passionate desire to serve or cheer that he could not but answer gently. "I am done with pain. Teach me to be patient." "Oh, if I could! We must learn that together. she said, feeling with him how sorely both would need the meek virtue to sustain the life before them. "Where is Felix?" asked Hellwise, after lying for a while with his eyes upon the fire, as if they would absorb its light and warmth into their melancholy depths. "Mourning for Gladys," replied Olivia, fearing to touch the dangerous topic, yet anxious to know how the two men stood toward one another. For something in the manner of the younger, when the elder was mentioned, made her suspect some stronger, sadder tie between them than the one she had already guessed. "Does he know of this?" And Hellwise struck himself a feeble blow with the one hand which he could use, now lying on his breast. "Yes." "What does he say of me?" "Nothing." "I must see him." "You shall. I asked him if he had no word for you, and he answered with a strange expression, 'When I have buried my dead, I will come for the last time.'" "How does he look?" questioned Hellwise, curious to see, even through another's eyes, the effect of sorrow upon the man whom he had watched so long and closely. "Sadly broken, but he is young and sanguine. He will soon forget and be happy again, so do not let a thought of him disturb you, Jasper." "It does not. We made our bargain and held each other to it, till he chose to break it. Let him bear the consequences as I do." "Alas, they fall on him far less heavily than on you. He has all the world before him where to choose, while you have nothing left but me." He did not seem to hear her, and fell into a gloomy reverie which she dared not break, but sat patiently beguiling her lonely watch with sad thoughts of the twilight future they were to share together, a future which might have been so beautiful and happy had true love earlier made them one. Another day, another night. Then there were sounds about the house which told Hellwise what was passing, without the need of any question. He asked none, but lay silent for the most part, as if careless or unconscious of what went on around him. He missed Olivia for an hour, and when she returned, traces of tears upon her cheeks told him that she had been to say farewell to Gladys. He had not spoken that name even to himself, for now an immeasurable space seemed to lie between him and its gentle owner. She had gone into a world whither he could not follow her. A veil, invisible, yet impenetrable, separated them forever, he believed, and nothing remained to him but a memory that would not die, a memory so bittersweet, so made up of remorse and reverence, love and longing, that it seemed to waken his heart from its long sleep, and kindle in it a spark of the divine fire, whose flame purified while it consumed. For even in his darkness and desolation he was not forgotten. Late that day Canaris came, looking like a man escaped from a great shipwreck, with nothing left him but his life. Unannounced he entered, and with the brevity which in moments of strong feeling is more expressive than eloquence, he said, "I am going." "Where?" asked Hellwise, conscious that any semblance of friendship, any word of sympathy was impossible between them. "Out into the world again." "What will you do?" "Any honest work I can find." "Let me—" "No, I will take nothing from you. Poor as I came, I will go, except the few relics I possess of her." A traitorous tremor in the voice, which was stern with repressed emotion, warned Canaris to pause there, while his eye turned to Olivia, as if reminded of some last debt to her. From his breast he drew a little paper, unfolded it, and took out what looked like a massive ring of gold. This he laid before her, saying with a softened mien and accent, "You were very kind. I have nothing else to offer. Let me give you this in memory of Gladys." Only a tress of sunny hair, but Olivia received the gift as if it were a very precious one, thanking him not only with wet eyes, but friendly words. "Dear Felix, for her sake, let me help you, if I can. Do not go away so lonely, purposeless, and poor. The world is hard. You will be disheartened and turn desperate, with no one to love and hope and work for. I must help myself. I am poor, but not purposeless nor alone. Disheartened I may be, never desperate again, for I have someone to love and hope and work for. She is waiting for me somewhere. I must make myself worthy to follow and find her. I have promised, and God helping me, I will keep that promise." Very humble yet hopeful was the voice, and full of a sad courage was the young man's altered face, for out of it the gladness and the bloom of youth had gone forever, leaving the strength of a noble purpose to confront a life which hereafter should be honest if not happy. Helwise had not the infinite patience to work in marble, the power to chisel even his own divided nature into harmony, like the sculptor who, in the likeness of a suffering saint, hewed his own features out of granite. He could only work in clay, as caprice inspired or circumstance suggested, forgetting that life's stream of mixed and molten metals would flow over his faulty models, fixing unalterably both beauty and blemish. He had found the youth plastic as clay, had shaped him as he would, till, tiring of the task, he had been ready to destroy his work. But the hand of a greater master had dropped into the furnace the gold of an enduring love, to brighten the bronze in which suffering and time were to cast the statue of the man. Helwise saw this now, and a pang of something sharper than remorse wrung from him the reluctant words, "Take as my last gift the fame which has cost you so much. I will never claim it. To me it is an added affliction. To you it may be a help. Keep it, I implore you, and give me the pardon she asked of you." But Canaris turned on him with the air of one who cries, "Get thee behind me," and answered with enough of the old vehemence to prove that grief had not yet subdued the passionate spirit which had been his undoing. "It is no longer in your power to tempt me, or in mine to be tempted by my bosom's sin. Forsyth knows the truth, and the world already wonders. I will earn a better fame for myself. Keep this and enjoy it if you can. Pardon I cannot promise yet, but I give you my pity for her sake." With that, the bitterest word he could have uttered, Canaris was gone, leaving Helwise to writhe under the double burden imposed by one more just than generous. Olivia durst not speak, and in the silence both listened to the hasty footsteps that passed from room to room, till a door closed loudly, and they knew that Canaris had set forth upon that long pilgrimage which was in time to lead him up to Gladys. Helwise spoke first, exclaiming with a dreary laugh, "So much for playing Providence. You were right, and I was rash to try it. Goethe could make his Satan as he liked, but fate was stronger than I, and so comes ignominious failure. Margaret dies, and Faust suffers, but Mephistopheles cannot go with him on his new wanderings. Still it holds even to the last. My end comes too soon, yet it is true. In loving the angel, I lose the soul I had nearly won. The roses turn to flakes of fire, and the poor devil is left lamenting. Olivia thought him wandering, and listened in alarm, for his thoughts seemed blown to and fro like leaves in a fitful gust, and she had no clue to them. Presently he broke out again, still haunted by the real tragedy in which he had borne a part, still following Canaris, whose freedom was like the thought of water to parched Tantalus. He will do it! He will do it! When or how, who shall say? But soon or late she will save him, since he believes in such salvation. Would that I did! Perhaps the despairing wish was the seed of a future hope, which might blossom into belief. Olivia trusted so, and tried to murmur some comfortable, though vague, assurance of a love and pity greater even than hers. He did not hear her, for his eyes were fixed with an expression of agonized yearning upon the sky, serene and beautiful, but infinitely distant, inexorably dumb, and when he spoke, his words had in them both his punishment and her own. Life before was purgatory, now it is hell, because I loved her, and I have no hope to follow and find her again. The end. End of chapter 18. End of A Modern Mephistopheles by Louisa May Alcott.